Radar's Bush Camp. And we're going to talk fishing and lures and all kinds of stuff like that. But to start out with, Radar, why don't you tell me where you're from, a little bit about your channel, and how you got all that started and stuff?
So I'm originally from Vero Beach, Florida, and I was raised between the Indian River and the Atlantic Ocean. And so I grew up saltwater fishing, and so going bass fishing was kind of it was fun for me to go do that because we weren't close to it. A lot of fresh water, obviously, in Florida, but my granddad would take me out to catch bass, and I didn't really get into serious bass fishing until probably I was probably in ninth grade when my buddies that were older could drive and we could go to some of the places to go bass fishing. But so I've been fishing. I used to sneak out of the house in second grade at 2 o'clock in the morning and go over the Indian River and go catch snook. And it was funny because my dad, like, he knew I was sneaking out of the house, and he'd wake up in the morning and there's a gutted snook in the fridge. So he knew I was sneaking out. But if there was a gutted snook in the fridge and he was going to have snook for supper because they're delicious, I never got in trouble. Now, if I got caught, I'd get in trouble. But back then, a second grader could go out and go fishing without worrying about. And the cops would bring me home a lot of the times because Jack Chestnut, the cop, he'd find me and he's like, Matthew, because I do have a real name. He's like, you really shouldn't be out here because it's a school night. I'm out there on a school night at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he'd say, we did take you home. Now he wouldn't go knock on the door, but he'd give me a ride home. And a lot of times I'd be like, you know what, dude? Can you give me like 5 more minutes? There's a huge snook here. And back then they had to be 18 inches long to keep it. Let me catch a snook. And he's like, all right, I'll be back in a few minutes. He'd come back and get me. So anyway, I was raised fishing and hunting also. But I started my channel last year, about 2 months before my sister, Granny's Southern Corner. So y'all check her out for sure if you haven't already. Because I'm 62 years old this year in October, and I have grandkids, in Florida, and my wife and my ex-wife and I are still real good friends. So we got all this family all over the place, and it's a good way for me to, talk to the kids. They can see what I'm doing, and I mean, I live in Idaho in the mountains, and we're hunting, and fishing, and always going. So this way, they could get on and see what granddad's doing, and that's why I kind of just myself. And I didn't really start the channel to get monetized. I did it for that. And then it kind of blew up. And I only have 800 something subscribers, but I didn't try really. And about the time I got like 200 subscribers in 1 week or in like 2 days or something, right before hunting season. And then between the Starlink messing up, and I kind of had to bail on it. Plus, I had to have a surgery and all this stuff. So I just kind of took a break. And my sister, I talked her into doing it, and she's going great because I knew she would. Tracy's got the voice for it. I mean, my accent's nothing like hers unless I talk to her on the phone. My wife always knows. She's like, "You talk to your sister today?" I'm like, "Yeah, how can you tell? Because your accent is thick as, butter now because you were talking to your sister." But I just did the channel for something to do. And, I appreciate the fact that I do want to say this, that, in this time that I've been down, I haven't lost any subscribers. So I really appreciate everybody hanging with me because most people understand, I don't work anymore. I work for Fish and Game, and I was a cop, and my life was a pilot. I was a crop duster. And then I went and flew Bush, Alaska for over a decade and had a guide business up there called Radar's Alaskan Bush Adventures. And then back in 94, some of the clients I would take, I took Jimmy Buffett and his daughter Savannah fishing, and took some of the guys from Group Alabama fishing. And it's the guys like Dick Beeson was the CEO for Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember Dave Thomas from Wendy's that owned Wendy's.
Yes.
Okay, took him fishing all the time, and they wanted me to go someplace warm in the winter because I stayed in Alaska year round because I was flying for an airline up there. And I was like, man, I'm not going to go. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to go back to Vero Beach because I know the water. And I fished in Key West and ended up guiding all over I even got to go guide in Argentina because Dick Beeson called me and he said, "We're going to Argentina." Okay, well, you and his son Scott, you all have fun. He's like, "No, you're going with us. You need to guide us." And I'm like, "How the hell am I going to guide you in Argentina? I ain't got no idea what you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out." So we went. Oh, we go to the Bahamas, and I know how to fish them, but we'd figure it out, or we'd take my Maverick boat and go to the Keys, or go to Isla Barada, or over to Boca Grande to catch tarpon or whatever. So I just, like I said, I did the channel for something to do so the kids could see it, and that's why I try and just be myself. I got kind of a little miffed about it because people like I'll drink a beer. I'm not an alcoholic or anything, but
Right.
people were like, "Oh, you can't show a beer, you can't show the gun, you can't." And it's like, man, I just want to be myself because I want my grandkids. I cuss a little more than I should. I try to avoid that, obviously, but because I don't need the grandkids going and dropping some bomb on their mama. And then where'd you hear that? Oh, granddad was on his channel talking. So I try to avoid that. But anyway, I just did it for something to do. And I met some awesome people, like Glenn Perlman,
Right.
friend,
The
Perlman
pearl.
one.
Yep.
He's coming out here to go hunting this year with me. And, it's a great, I'm amazed at how cool, and you will agree with this, the fishing community as a whole on here is a really good family. I mean, everybody that I've talked to, like you yesterday when I was saying I don't want to sound, and you're like, no, I want to learn. And the thing I appreciate about you, and I want to say this first off too, is you're learning and you'll admit it because I will teach you to do whatever you want to do if you don't understand. Because I didn't, I mean, yeah, I started young, but not everybody, you got to learn. I'm still learning because out here,
Right.
these smallmouth are driving me crazy because I haven't caught that 8 pounder yet. I've gotten close, but so it keeps me going. And, I got a bad back and new hips, and I still go as 100 miles an hour. Well, I'm down to about 6 miles an hour now, but I'm still trying. So anyway, the channel's been fun. A lot of people just, you get the occasional jerk that you're going to get that anywhere, but for the most part, everybody on here is just sweet as could be. And there's my sister. Yeah, Radar's very old. I am, but you're older than I am by a year and a half, almost exactly. And she's got a
But
birthday
yeah.
coming up. She's got a birthday coming up,
Well,
14th. So
happy
yeah,
early birthday,
yeah.
Tracy,
Hey
or
JW,
Granny
how you
Southern
doing, man?
Corner. But the first time I ever met Granny, she's like, "You need to talk to my brother Matt. You need to talk to Radar's Bush Camp." And I'm like, "Okay, but I have no idea who that guy is." And really, most of the people I have on here, I've known through other live streams or talk. Really, the first time we talked was yesterday,
Right,
kind of
right.
planning this thing and discussing what to talk about. And we are going to talk about our favorite baits here and how to fish them and what we've used. Like I've got a whole, slew of baits over here that I've actually caught
Yeah,
bass
I
on, and
pulled
I
a
want to
few
go
out of here
through them.
too.
But we've got some other people like Scott's on here, so I want to say hi to Scott, and then Lori's on here, so I want to say hi to Lori, and just all my friends. Thank you for showing up, Pearlman. I'm so excited for you. I hope you get a deer this year out there
Oh,
in
we're getting one. We're
Utah,
working on it. We're working on it all.
and maybe sometime I can plan a fishing trip out to Utah, or maybe Radar can come up here and take me out on one of my lakes. Like I'm 30 minutes from Lake Monroe, so
Oh,
that'd
that's
be cool to
awesome.
be able to get a boat to go out on the
I
water and
got
go
one,
fishing.
and I've drugged that thing all the way to Florida 2 years ago. And I took my wife's car. I bought her a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. I mean, it was brand new. It didn't have, I don't know, 1,000 miles on it. And I got in a hailstorm and a tornado in Texas, and the hail destroyed it. It didn't hurt the glass.
Ooh.
I was like, I was all sick to my stomach. Then I get to Florida, and the guy that I told you about, if I call you Naylor, please don't get mad because I'm telling you, you
You're
remind
all
me
right.
of my best friend. You guys are. I still every time I look at you, I want to say, "Hey, Naylor, what's up?" Because you look and talk everything about him. But anyway, we get to his house, and he backed into the passenger door on the driver's side with his car. Like, so it's got all this. I mean, I got it back out here. The insurance company was like, "Did you try and kill yourself?" I won't drive the car anymore because then I go take it to surgery, and I hit an elk. So I'm I don't drive her car. It's all fixed. It's beautiful, but we don't drive that. But I could pull that boat anywhere. I mean, we'd love to go down there. Yeah. So I am. So let me answer escaping. So Granny and I grew up together, and she is more of a sister to me than my actual sister. Like we hung out. We've been best friends, but it's a brother sister thing. Her mom is called. I'm her son, and it's a Southern thing. That's just. But yeah.
So,
Um,
so Granny or Lord, was it Granny? Said she loved my shirt.
yeah, I
And
like
I'm
that shirt
going,
too. That's a nice shirt.
so this shirt is from a company called Fish Her. It's actually a bunch of girls, and I met them at the 2025 Indiana Fishing Expo, and it's a group of women that fish bass tournaments, and they made their own clothing line.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
Carissa has a pink shirt like this that has a mermaid tail on it, looks like scales. Mine's called Fishing and Freedom. So it's got
Oh, that's
like it says
nice.
fishing and freedom on the back with a bass on it. So
Mm.
I support the ladies as much as anybody else, and we
Oh,
need more
absolutely.
women in this sport. We need real women, not the kind that are on Instagram, not the kind that are just
Mhm.
showing off their chest, and
Yep.
it's all fake. All right,
Yep.
we need them out there. You know, they're like Allie. Allie is a great example of what a
Yeah, she's
fisherwoman should be like.
yeah, I
Right?
watched her on your thing and she's awesome. That's why I'm hoping
Yeah.
she gets on here because even if it comes up later, I got a couple baits I wanted to show just for her. Because, like I say, I know where her house is just from what she described. I had a duck blind right behind her house. I know for a fact I did because we used to fish up there in Merritt Island. So I know right where she's at and fish the Banana River and the Indian River up there because it splits when it's coming down the intercoastal waterway. And part of it's the Banana River and part of it's the Indian River. And so, yeah, I've got some stuff here that'll really help her out. But yeah, and y'all do that. Yeah, like and subscribe to DJ's channel. For those of you guys came over on here, because I've watched a lot of his stuff this week, trying to get ready for this to see how he did it. And you just go through his stuff. He's learning, but he's way ahead of the curve, man. You seem to dial in, and that's the big
Oh, yeah.
part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Right.
say, I'd love to take you fishing, and we need to work something out. And I'm not in Utah. I'm in Idaho. There's Utah
Oh,
is a
okay.
little bit,
I'm sorry. My bad.
No, it's all right. Just so you know, because I'm right on the Utah border and the Wyoming border.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
literally an hour from Wyoming and 35 minutes from Utah. So I'm right
Right.
there where the Bear River runs through and goes down, and it's a great river to fish too. And it's right here next to the house. That's that uh, Lake Alexander Reservoir that I fish right here for
Hmm.
smallmouth, and trout are in there too, and catfish and all. It's 2 minutes. I could be in the water in 20 minutes fishing.
So you're in Idaho. I always
Yeah.
thought it was Utah. Okay, that's my bad. Maybe Granny said Utah by accident. I don't know,
Well,
but
she might have said I'm right next to it because that's what a lot of
yeah,
people think. You did nothing wrong. It's just a lot of people, because I usually have to tell them, yeah, I'm just 30 minutes north of the Utah border because nobody knows where Grace, Idaho is. There's 850 people here. It's a farming community. A lot of cattle, a lot of potatoes, obviously, a lot of barley. My stepson Eric, he's my son. I mean, he's a good kid. He works for Stoddard Farms. He's like one of their head guys running all their big equipment and that. So, and you were right about the women. I married one who's awesome. You know, I've been divorced a couple of times. I tell everybody I have AIDS, aviation induced divorce syndrome, because they like the money that I'm making when I'm flying, but they don't like me being gone. And what do? I can't work at McDonald's and take you to Belize next weekend. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Nancy got me when I'm old and broke down, and she's been a trooper. But that's the thing, man. These women nowadays, I would hate to be somebody's younger trying to date with, you know. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not fishing talking, but that's just life experience, man. It's tough. It's tough.
I was married for 7 years to somebody who didn't do the hunting, didn't do the fishing things. So I know exactly what it's like. I'm so lucky to have Carissa and her family. Like where we live is perfect to hunt. The creek runs right by the house. I'm 30
Yeah.
minutes to an hour away from any place I want to go. But just to have that support, and it's like that does like, but I'll drop anything. I don't care if I'm going to go hunting tomorrow. I'll drop that to go hang out with her family or do things with her. But that's
Yeah.
because she lets me do what I want to do. And
Right.
sometimes she likes to hunt and fish with me, but I'm not going to force her to either. That's another thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you've got some of your favorite lures there on the table that you want to talk about. So I'll have you start by showing off your lures and everything, and just talk about
Well,
fishing, I guess.
you got the frog out there that I was asking you to get out, and I was going to show you what I do real quick with these frogs. This is a live action frog. This is new in the package. I don't think I've cut the tails on this because a lot of times I kind of tweak them and just put them back in the box. And as you
Yeah.
can see, I have a whole bunch of frogs. And the reason I've
Right.
got to some of them, I was telling you, I cut the legs on them, and that's the first thing you got to do with these things. Because
Is
yeah,
that
this
this
one,
one right here? This one you have?
yeah,
The lumper
no,
hunt?
it's a
Oh,
live action. It's called
gotcha.
Live
Okay.
Target,
Oh,
and
okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
they're you could see they're so realistic, but see how long the tails are. And what
Hmm.
I do is I always cut these off to where they're about half the body length. Because
Okay.
Glenn was saying you were having trouble with short striking to getting them set, and you do need to wait when you throw these things. You got to kind of let it. It's hard because you get this big bass, and it's flopping along and they just suck it down. And sometimes the smaller ones will smack the crap out of it and miss it because the bass will come up to hit the frog to kill it. And then they'll come back, kind of like a billfish, sailfish come up and swat the bait with their bill, and then they come back and eat the wounded ones. Well, the bass do the same thing with a frog. And the only thing, I've got different colors, but the only thing, like, if it's, people will say, oh, don't fish them if it's sunny, don't fish them if it's this, but that. I fish these in the tournaments almost the whole tournament usually, because for you guys that tournament fish, what we found when we first started fishing tournaments way back was, instead of going out and just trying to get 5 fish and then going and looking for the big fish to get some weight, we fish for the big fish all day. So I might get 6 hits in a tournament that runs from safe light till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which means we could fish, depending on where we're at, till 2 or 2 feet, depends on the lake. But I fish these frogs all day long. And so I cut the tails off, and you need to do that with your Guggen. Like, you want them short, and sometimes, like I was telling you last night, I'll cut one off here and cut one off here, because then the drag of this, you can walk the dog easier with it,
Hmm.
and it'll make that action. And then it looks like one of the legs is messed up, because I mean, the bass see this thing, it looks like a frog, and you got these big old legs hanging back out here. Well, they come up to smack it to break their legs to injure the frog so they can come back and eat it. And I'm not saying that happens all the time. A lot of times these big ones just suck it down, and you got to give them a minute. Like, I had to learn to count to three, because it was so hard to learn to do that. But you count to three and let them get it in their mouth and then set the hook. And we use 85-pound braid. I'm using heavy action rods with bait casters, obviously. And we're fishing in stuff that I will throw it across, 160-foot cast, because I've been using Cast King reels, but a lot of Shimano. And like in the tournaments, I got 20 rods laid out on the bow of the boat, but I'd have, two with frogs on it, because in case one broke off. And what we would do is, when you're coming across these lily pads, there might be one hole that's 3 foot around in that whole cast. But the frogs coming across the lily pads, you'll see the pushes just like a redfish will push. And you see these bass coming for it, and they're going to hit it when you drop it off that lily pad. So you can kind of, it's coming. Well, the other thing I do, and this stuff is expensive as all get out, it's called Mega Strike. And it used to be you could get 3 of these for 21 bucks. I think they're $29 now for one little tube. But you take this stuff, and it's they call it a fish attractant, but it's more, when a bass or something, they could taste when they hit this frog. And I put it on stick baits, like we've used it just playing around with it. The main
Hmm.
reason, not only because the bass will hold on to this more, but it gets this frog slippery. Because when you're fishing in Florida, especially, and you have that humidity, as the sun burns every morning, there's going to be dew on the lily pads, just about every morning in Florida. As that stuff burns off because of the sun, it gets sticky. So what happens is, these frogs are going across the lily pad, they'll stick. And so you might, when you pull it, it might catch, and then it jumps too far. But you put this stuff on it, and it causes the frogs to slide across the lily pads and slide through the grass better, and gives the fish something that they want to hang on to, because it tastes like whatever this stuff is. We've tasted it, and it's kind of like, I don't know, crawdad eggs. I don't know what they put in it, but it actually works. So if you get this Mega Strike, and again, it's not cheap. Last time I saw it, I think it was 29 bucks for one tube. You don't need much. But we, throughout the day, would keep adding that to the frog and just slather the whole frog legs and all with it. So try that with your Guggen bait. And the other reason I use these frogs, and there's nothing wrong with that Guggen bait, I'm not knocking any of these baits, because that one's going to be easier to walk the dog than this fat thing. But bass has teeth. When you have a cylinder shaped frog like that is, it's even with the slick stuff on it, it's going to be smooth. There's not anything that'll help catch the teeth. So we found the wider the frog is, you know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
got more surface, and you can see when those hooks are sharp. And so when they bite
Right.
it, the hooks pop out, and these things are weedless as all get out. If you saw the stuff we were throwing these through,
Oh yeah.
but that right there for bass is my number one bait, and I use them in Idaho. I've caught smallmouth on them, but it's not like fishing Florida. I mean, the frogs don't really get to any size out here until almost August, and you really don't see a lot of them. They start kind of coming out in June, but it's not like Florida where you hear frogs everywhere you're going and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, you know. So, but that is what won me all kinds of tournaments because, like I say, we'd throw this frog all day, and then we'd have like a horny toad, or I have another bait here that I was going to show you. That this is that one I was telling you that my buddy had made at Gambler. It doesn't even have a color on it, and I know that they picked it up and they started making them. But remember when Ali G was talking about the shiners in Florida, the golden shiners? So this looks kind of funny because it's, you look at that and you wouldn't think it looks like a shiner. But when it's in the water, that thing looks exactly like one of those golden shiners she was talking about. Because Carrie, the guy who designed this, was the guy who was in charge of all the couples and some of the one-man tournaments all over Florida. And he brought me a couple bags of them because I'd been winning all these tournaments. He's like, "Would you try these, please? We're trying to get Gambler to make them." And so how I do these, you have one of these on another rod because if they miss that frog, and then sometimes, they miss the frog, they come back, they miss it again, but you can't make that frog sink. I mean, it's floating. So I'll pick up another rod, throw one of these in there, and I reel this like a swim bait across the surface
Right.
fast. I use 10.1 to 1 reels. That's how fast I'm reeling that thing. Because you cannot, I don't care how fast you are, if a fish wants it, they will catch it, because people go, "Oh, it's going too fast." And I will rip this across where that bass missed it. And then where he missed it or she missed it, because, big bass are females, where she missed it, I'll drag this across and let that drop where and they'll always pick this up. And I just rigged this like you'd rig anything else. And this is a 3-aught or 4-aught,
Yeah.
hooked it. And I just do like everybody else does and, put it through the front here. And I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm trying to keep it in front here. Pull it up to there. And then you pull this and put it through all the way through so that it's
Right.
sticking out over here like you would and just hook it in the back right there. And it's the same thing with the frog. When they hit this thing, you got to give them a second to eat it. And I kind of like fishing single hooks or, the frog with double hooks because I'll show you this other bait that I would swear by anywhere in the world. And you've got 3 treble hooks. And with a bass, it's not such a big deal because you grab a bass by the lip and pick it up, even if you were flipping and caught one and they're madder than hell. Once you pick them up, they kind of chill out. Trout,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate catching trout. I love catching trout, hate having to mess with them because with the treble hook, I usually get one in the gill, and that's the ones we have to end up eating because I'm not going to waste it, But anyway, this was the other bait. Now I know Gambler started making them for carry, and they went public with this color, but I don't know what they ended up calling it. And he designed this back in like 2010. So you know how they go through baits and you find a bait you really like, and then all of a sudden they quit making it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm pretty sure that this is still available because I bought some of them in Florida 2 years ago. And I try and keep these things unopened if I can because if they last, and I've caught smallmouth on this thing out here. It's just that's a pretty big bait, because that's the
Right.
biggest one they
What,
made.
6 inches?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a big bait. It's heavy too. I don't like using the hooks. I've got them that have the screw in, where on the hook here they have it comes back off of here and it has a screw in it, and you could screw the tip of the, bait into that screw. I don't like using those because, you miss, and when you set the hook, it obviously rips this thing out. And you know
Oh,
how
yeah.
a worm ends up all crushed up.
Oh, yeah.
If you have them in that spring, it really tears these heads up. And
Yeah.
again, we got tons of baits, but I try and use these things until they're so wore out you just can't get a hook on them anymore. Because all I got to do is get that fish to eat it. You know what I'm saying? And when he first came out with his bait, gave him to me. We were at a tournament, and they called me. My first name's Robert, and that's what I use, Robert Radar Orth in business and stuff. But everybody called me Matt or Radar. But Kerry started calling me Big Fish Bob because he's like, that dude catches the big fish in every freaking tournament he goes to. Because if you fish for big fish and you enter the big fish pot and you win big fish, it will pay for the tournament. There's always enough money to pay the entry fee, usually pay my gas. It pays for the tournament. So if we catch the big fish, that tournament hadn't cost me anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I got really dialed into doing that. And if you catch big fish, and you have a 5 fish limit, 90% of the time we'll win the tournament or at least be in the money. You know what I'm saying? Because we didn't take money out of our pocket when Dave and I were fishing this, except for the first 3 tournaments, because it's expensive. I mean, and I don't know if you could see that one thing up there, that tournament that was in that circle
Yeah.
thing up there. That tournament, we won $12,000 that day. I mean, and it was just a local tournament, but it was on a lake that hadn't been fished a tournament for years because it was on Tasala, Apopka near Inverness, Florida. And they hadn't fished tournaments there for years because the bass just got hammered with a cold front one year, and people spraying and all that kind of stuff and killed, in their backyards. They're out there spraying around their docks and they don't know how to do it because, I'm a crop duster. I know how to kill aquatic and, weeds, and they use too much and it kills the fish because it sucks the oxygen. It's not the chemical that kills the fish, it's just a concentrated salt. What it is they kill all these weeds. The weeds go to the bottom, they start disintegrating, and it uses up oxygen. And so the oxygen gets depleted. And if the lake's big enough, the fish can move away from there. But when they're spraying the whole dang lake, the fish don't have any place to go. And that's what happened to that tournament. And that was the first tournament. It was 2006. And we won $12,000 that day. And we had second place, I think, had 17 pounds, and we had 36 pounds. And that was all
Wow.
on that frog and this. And anyway,
So,
Carrie gave
I,
me this thing. Let me show you this real quick and I'll shut up. Carrie gave me this, said, please fish this today. I won the tournament and big fish, throwing the frog. And I had thrown this thing out and had a backlash, and my partner had a problem. So I let it sink to the bottom. I reel it in. There's a fish on it. I set the hook, 9.5 pound fish. And so he
nice.
asked me when I got back, he said, tell me you use that. I said, yeah. He goes, did you win? I said, I don't know. It depends on everybody else did, but I caught a 9.5 pounder on it. And he's like, you got to be kidding me. Were you reeling it across the top? And I told him what happened. And he said, well, that's kind of cheating because it's made to be a top water bait. I said, I don't care how I caught it. If I got big fish and win this tournament, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, it's a good bait. So if you could find those gambler baits or something like it, because there's a lot of baits out there that are close that'll work, you know.
Right. So back to the frog. Scott said he got his finally got a fishing pole, which is awesome. Um, I've read and heard that when you're throwing a frog, they say a medium heavy action rod. I literally just ordered me one today. I normally use a what is it? Yeah, it's just a medium action
Hmm.
to do everything. I mean, does it matter? Does the heavy versus the medium like
Yeah, and the reason being is I like a heavy action rod for frogs with a fast tip. So it'll be heavy or even medium heavy, but a frog and rod is a 7 foot 6 inch rod, and it's a Rick Clun rod, and it's a heavy action with a fast. It's a heavyweight fast action, which means the tip's got a lot of play in it because that way when you set the hook with braid too, now mind you, you got to have something. I mean, that braid doesn't stretch. So, I mean, you only have to move that rod tip that far and it'll set the hook. People don't realize that because braid won't stretch. Monofilament, that's why when braid came out, we got good braids. It changed the top water game because monofilament stretches so much, it's hard to get the hook set in something that's 150 feet away. You know what I mean? And plus, then
braided
they just
line?
bury themselves down in that crap. And like we don't pull the fish out of there. We catch those fish and it hits, we set the hook and we take the boat to the fish. There's no way you could even drag a 4 pounder through that stuff, even with 85 pound braid. You're just gonna rip it out of their mouth. So we set the hook, and then somebody's already getting on the big motor, whoever's got the fish, the other one hops on the boat, and we drive the boat through all that, which sometimes kind of sucks because you probably, we watch fish were blowing out of there. But if I got an 8 pounder on the end of that, it's worth it. And then we just move and start over again. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to try and, you think, well, I got 85 pound braid or 65 pound braid on here that I'm going to, and I use Power Pro. They had a bad batch a couple of years ago and I almost lost my confidence in it. But the company came out and said, yeah, we had a couple bad batches. And I unfortunately got one and was like, the 60 pound braid was breaking, and that just doesn't happen. Especially, and you have that happen in a tournament. It breaks your heart because that might have just cost you 5 grand. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, but I'd say go with a heavy action, fast tip. Like it depends on the rod manufacturer, but you want a heavy rod with a fast action. For That's what I use, and the longer the better because you have more control and you can cast farther. And you want to, they'll follow it to the boat sometimes and hit it right in the boat, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So you got any more lures you want to show off before I
Yeah, so
talk about
for
mine?
real quick, I was gonna. This is what I use in the Indian River. That's it. I take this little box with me with my little ultralight, and I throw what's called a Cody jig. This is what I wanted to show Ali G. They don't make these anymore, unfortunately, and they don't make this tail. This tail, I'm sorry, they do make. This is an aftermarket, or to me, it's an aftermarket because the original Cody jig, which is let's see that guy right there. You see how the tails are different on it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
this one and this is only a quarter of an ounce. Sometimes I throw an eighth of an ounce because with 4 pound test in my ultralight rod, I can sling this thing a mile. But in the Indian River, when I'm not fishing with a fly rod, this is what I throw. And it again, if Ali G can find something like this, which again, Cody jigs unfortunately aren't made anymore. I have a bag of these things that I treat like gold because you just can't get them anymore. I got a huge bag of them that I've been really careful. Again, it's plastic, and I'm thinking about trying to make a mold of these and just make my own because they're that good. Because when you let them drop, because of this tail, they spiral down and it'll put a lot of line twist in your line. So, at the end of the day, you usually got to stretch your line out, especially on a spinning rod, and unravel
Right.
it. But it's worth it because I've caught some huge snook on this thing. The one you can get now is made by DOA, and
Hmm.
it's the one
Yeah.
that has this paddle tail. And I think it's just because I used Cody jigs since I was a kid and I have so much confidence in them that even though it's not much different, I was kind of like, but we have fished this one with the Cody jig and it did just as well. And I like the green color. They also make a root beer color. This isn't it. This was one I was using like you were for crappie. But that root beer color without the glitter in it, and you can find DOA, like I say, make these. And Ali G, if you get some of these DOA with the and quarter ounce, eighth ounce, whatever jig head, and this is a Cody jig head one. Like this is an aftermarket or another company, I should say. And I mean, again, there's not much difference in them if y'all
Right.
can see that, but you got to do with what you can use. And then the other thing I do, and I catch huge sea trout, snook, I've caught redfish. This is just a mirror lure, and it's a floating mirror lure, and I forgot the number on it, but it's a floating mirror lure, and I just walk the dog with this in the morning, and in this color with the red belly, or in just a mullet. Black looks like a black back rapala, like we were talking about
Hmm.
earlier. And I could take these lures right here in this box and my little rod. And a lot of times, the clients like Dick Beeson and Dave Thomas and all those guys, when I take them fishing, they want me to fish. And it's hard. They got two guys fly fishing out of my 18-foot boat, and it's a Maverick. It was a beautiful boat. It was, set up for that. But I can't sit there and throw a fly rod. So I had a hand control bow motor on it. And so I just sit on the bow with my feet in the water and throw this ultralight because I could stay under them. Because I brought this to show y'all, it's just a 4-foot rod. And this thing's 30 years old. And it was made, got my name on it. We made these things. My buddy Lee Howard in Vero Beach, Florida, who was a guide too, and he helped me out in Alaska a lot. We grew up together. Sis, Granny Southern Corner, we all grew up with Lee. He built these rods for me. And what happened was Berkeley in North Carolina, the factory burnt down. He bought 3 whole semi trailer loads full of Berkeley blanks. It was
Dang.
just blanks. He went through every one of them, and the ones that he could find that bent correctly, so that you don't want to have a catch in the line so it makes a corner. You want it when
Right.
you bend it, you want it to be nice and smooth. And out of 3 trailer loads, I think we got like 500. And there were hundreds of thousands of blanks. We got like 500 that would work. And I caught a 141-pound tarpon on this rod with 4-pound test with Dick Beast.
Dang.
It would have been a world record, a typical line class record, but we didn't want to kill the fish. And I was an IGFA representative for Vero Beach, Florida, and for Bethel, Alaska, like I was telling you last night. And so I know how it all works. And I called IGFA and I'm talking to Jim Brown. I'm like, hey, we got this big tarpon here. I really don't want to kill her. What's the world record for 4-pound test? And he said it was 128 pounds. And I'm like, and he was like, dude, that blows that thing away. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd have to kill her because I wasn't set up that day to do it and release her and all that stuff. So we ended up letting her go because Dick Beeson, I was going to break it off. I caught it on a Cody jig, 141-pound tarpon on that thing. And Dick Beeson, I told him I'm gonna break it off. He's no, I want to see you catch that fish. I'm like, Dick, we're gonna be here for 5 hours. I mean, this isn't it's 4-pound test. He's like, I want to see you catch that fish. So Spent 3.5 hours catching it, got it to the boat. I just had back fusion surgery not a year, right at a year before. He just had knee surgery, and he went with my Boca grip, was going to pull that fish in the boat. And she, with 4 pound test, she was still pretty green, even after all that time. And I'm like, dude, no, 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 because I was up on the polling platform. I'm like, no, 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 don't, no. Let's just measure her and weigh her and see, we can do it out of the boat. And made the phone call and decided just to let her go. And I got in the water, gave her a kiss, and turned her loose. But you just can't, it's hard to find rods and reels anymore. If you're going to get a good one like that reel that's on there is a Quantum Energy, and it's one of the old ones. It was built in the 90s. It was $190, I think. And to get that same quality reel, because you have to have a good drag. You could catch a whale on 4 pound test if you have a good drag, because if it catches, that's when the line breaks. And you got to have the rod right. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the Cody jig and this mirror lure for Ali G, man, go find these and go out in your backyard and go catch some redfish or snook or something, because there's a mess of them in there.
Right.
And but Glenn's
That's it.
right. Wendy's has gone down in quality since Dave passed. He was such a good dude. They taught me how to drink bourbon. I mean, not bourbon, but scotch. And this is kind of a funny story. We were up in North Carolina because, like I say, these guys would call me and go, "Hey, you know anybody in North Carolina? Yeah, Lee Howard. Let's go up there and go fishing for trout." So we'd go up there and go fishing. And one night after we got done fishing, they were like, "Yeah, I want you and Lee to come over to our cabin tonight." So we go over there. He had a bottle of Macallan Scotch. It was like $10,000 for this bottle of Scotch. Okay. And he's like, "We're going to teach you how to drink Scotch." And Lee and I are like, "Yeah, we don't drink Scotch. That's just not our thing. You'll like this. Shut up." And, it's funny. So they were mad because we had to use plastic cups. They were like, "You have to put it over fresh ice. You have to use the glass, all this stuff." Anyway, and he told Lee, he's like, "If I see you chugging this stuff, I'm going to smack you." So they give you, a little bit of Scotch in the glass. And Lee, of course, chugs it. And Dave Thomas smacked him in the back of the head. He's like, "You stupid redneck. This bottle costs $10,000. We don't drink it like that."
Oh, Lord.
I was like, "Holy crap!" And I have a bottle of it here, but it's not the $10,000 stuff. But anyway, yeah, we had a good time
Give
with
me
those guys.
give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab
Yep.
my hoodie because I'm getting cold, but I'll be right back.
No, no, no worries. Yeah, so let's see. Sometimes pelican end up the wildlife center to recover from fishing line accidents. Yeah, I hate people that leave fishing line in the water. It just, yeah, I people that leave trash. I don't know, man. And on my rivers and where I fish, I get mad because I don't know. People,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's tough. Yeah,
Yes.
Granny's right.
So
I do. I kiss my fish when I turn them loose, and he
what's wrong
pulled a
with
Daniel.
that?
That's a nice hoodie. I saw your merch, and I will be ordering a hoodie. I'll be wearing it this coming spring when I'm out there freezing my butt off when we finally get on the lake. You
I
got
appreciate that. You'll be my second order.
Yeah,
The only thing I don't like about doing it through that is I don't get to set the prices on my stuff. So the hoodie's like $40, but it's because Tree Spring makes the prices.
right.
This hoodie I got from GuggenSquad.com. I'm actually rocking my Guggen Baits hoodie
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've caught my biggest fish on Guggen Baits and I love them. So that leads me into me showing off a bunch of baits that I have and how I rig them. Um, one of my favorite little things to throw is this little
Yeah,
grub paddle tail right here, and it's from a company called Fish Factory. It's actually from Timu, but right here they just come in like little packages, like 30. But I found another brand called Dove Sun, and I was catching a lot of bass down here at the creek. But I've caught bass, I've caught crappie, and I've caught bluegill on this little paddle tail swim bait. And I
yeah,
just rig it on a little jig head like this. You just
yep,
throw it out and reel it in or stop it. However, it's super easy to fish. And I've caught a lot of fish on there like
yeah.
that down
And
the
that's
creek.
it. You get confident in it too, because that's the biggest thing is to try and tell people, people come fishing with me and they want to try their own stuff, which I'm all about. Like, yeah, try it. And then they're not doing so well, and I'll tell them, try this. This is what we use on here. And most people, when they pay what they're paying me back in the day to take them fishing, will listen to you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's like, I want them to catch fish,
Right.
and because they'll laugh about it. You've only got two baits, or you've only got three baits counting the fly I've got that I designed. And I'm like, yeah, because if the fish are eating, they're going to hit this. You know what I'm saying? And saltwater tournaments are always easier than bass tournaments, because if the little green fish isn't eaten, then most of the little green fish aren't eaten. So that's when you got to, improvise and start flipping or do some other stuff. And I can flip, but it gives me a headache, staring at the line, waiting for that tick. So I trying to not to flip anymore, and I have to unless it's to win a tournament. But saltwater tournaments, there's usually a redfish, pot or tournament going on with it, and there's a sea trout, tarpon, snook. There's 4 or 5 different fish you could catch in a tournament, a saltwater tournament. And I actually fished one in Vero with a fly rod, and people, you could use whatever you want. And everybody thought I'd win the snook. They're like, oh, Radar's going to catch a big snook, I'm sure. And I ended up winning the sea trout, which, everybody was surprised, caught it, trying to catch a snook. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you got to be confident in it. And I know you're confident in that.
Oh yeah. So another one. This is the Guggen Squad bumper
Mhm.
right here. It's a double Colorado
Colorado.
bladed
Yeah.
half ounce, yeah, half ounce spinner bait, and this is the exact lure I caught that fish on right there.
Oh, wow.
Now
Yeah, that's
the
awesome.
lure that's on there is a white one because right after I caught this, I had lost this exact one and I bought a different one. But slow roll it over rocks, colder
Right.
water, things like that with the Colorado blade. Colorado blade, you slow roll it, it beats off things,
Yep.
it
Thump,
shimmies
thump, thump,
different.
thump, thump. Yep.
And I've caught, yeah, blue and black is my color. You guys are going to
Yep.
see that here. Blue and black go to. And I didn't run a trailer. A lot of guys will run a trailer like I did
Edward.
on this one right here, a little Strike King Micro King with this with a little swim bait trailer.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
I've
do that
ran
too,
these
right?
swim baits on just a normal jig head and caught fish that way. Matter of fact, I bought these were from Amazon. I bought 100 pack of them in different colors, and I use them as trailers or just run them on a jig head. And
Have you
this is what it looks like right here. I love my paddle tail swim baits, and I put
with
it
the
on like
with the have you been putting a trailer hook on your spinner baits? Do you find, I mean, have you ever tried putting a red or, just a trailer hook on there?
this is the one that I did. So this is a spinner bait. This is a Strike King Micro King single Colorado bladed spinner bait. And I
Mhm.
did put a trailer on here, and I've caught 15, 16-inch largemouth bass, about 3 pounds off of it, 3 pound
But
bass on them. But when I caught this one, I didn't. I just ran it straight like that.
mhm.
But I've had more luck, and I've had more luck running a trailer because you're adding more action to the
Right,
back
right.
of that lure, and it'll either imitate shad or whatever you're imitating in the water. And with the darker water around here, the darker colors, because fish only see the shadows anyways,
Right, right.
and it
Absolutely.
and the shimmer off the blade itself when it's spinning through the water.
Yep.
But I've had more luck, I think, with a trailer on than I have without one. I just got lucky that day and caught that bass back there.
Have you
So
had problems with them short striking it?
my first, so this is a Z-Man original chatterbait.
Mhm.
So, people don't know what a chatterbait is. It's got this little hexagon blade on there. It's a jig, but when you run it through the water, it vibrates, and
Shakes you out of the boat.
this will kick. And I caught one bass on this last year, but I had probably 4 or 5 bites, and two out of the three bass that I would have caught on this fell off the hook as I was bringing it out of the
Mhm.
water. So I think if I would have put a trailer on here, I probably would have had a better bite ratio on it or a
Well,
better
and
hookup ratio.
what I mean by a trailer is what I do is I actually put another hook on the back of the
Oh,
hook that's on that. And then I put the trailer on that hook because these smallmouth are notorious for short striking. And I'll throw a spinner bait. I mean, I'm not a spinner bait fisherman, but I catch fish on them because, it's throw it out and reel it in. When you get tired and you're
right.
tired of working a jerk bait or something, I can throw a spinner bait, but I was having trouble with them short striking. So I actually put another hook on the hook on that, put the trailer on it, and my hook sets went up probably 80%. So it's
I
just
need to
a
try
thought.
that. I've heard of guys doing it because what those hooks look like is they're just a regular hook like this, but they've got
Yep.
an eye that sits flat, not up or
Right.
whatever. Yeah. So that way you can just slide it over this. I've seen people do it. I've just never
Joy.
done it.
Yeah,
So
do it. Joy came on. Hey, Joy, how you doing, hon?
hi.
Missed you. So try it because everybody, there's a guy in Florida called Spinnerbait Eddie, and he was like somebody I fished against every weekend, but we were really good friends. The guy called me during a cold front. I hate fishing cold front because Florida bass just shut down. And he
Mm.
calls me. He goes, "Are you catching any fish?" I'm like, "You know better than that. It's a cold front." He goes, "Throw a white spinnerbait." I just caught an 8 pounder, and he always had a trailer hook, always, like always. And
Okay.
during that tournament, I put on a white spinnerbait. We ended up winning the tournament because he called me. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of cool that your fellow competitor, and I actually gave him money for gas for his boat because I'm like, dude, I wouldn't have won this tournament. But try throwing that trailer because again, out here when we throw them, if you don't have a trailer hook on them with these smallmouth, you just miss
Right.
so many fish because they just again they're hitting the skirt or they're hitting the tail of the trailer you have on the single hook that's on the spinner blade on the
Yeah.
spinner. So try that because they come with a little piece of tubing that you put over the flat part of that trailer hook, and then you hook it through that so it keeps that trailer hook sticking straight out, so it's not flopping around, and it really holds that trailer um, bait that you have on there flat, and it gives you a little extra weight to throw it a little farther too. You know what I'm saying? Just food for thought. You know.
Right. I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm always learning, and you can fish them any way you want to, but
Oh,
having a
absolutely.
trailer
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just
So
try it.
my 5.5 pounder was caught on this Guggen Baits Slim Shake worm right here. It's a 6 inch. They make a 6 inch and a 9 inch version of this, and it's a finesse fishing worm. I caught it in March of 2019, and I Texas rigged it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Guggen's been known to make soft plastics, and like they complain about their soft plastics being too soft, so they rip
Right.
real easy. But that's any soft plastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but this isn't a natural color because I don't have the blue and black out right now. But here's what it looks like, and it's just a really
Yeah.
nice
Real
worm,
limber. Yeah.
limber worm. And so I Texas rig, which means you put a slip sinker right here, you run your hook through, and then you can fish it. But I've always had really good luck with this right here. So if you guys are looking for a good fishing worm, the good thing is they come in a clamshell, a pack of 9.
Yeah, so
They
they
come
don't
with
get all
9 worms.
stuck together and nasty and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
no, that's actually
Yeah.
really nice. And for
And
those of you that don't
they've
know,
got a scent to them called the shallot sauce, and it smells like black licorice.
oh really? Yeah, licorice.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike, those old man baits. You almost wanted to eat them because they had so much anise on them, to keep them from sticking together and stuff. But yeah, pink and
Pink
purple,
or purple.
purple worm has probably caught more fish in Florida than anything else. Those big purple. That's what I caught my first bass over 10 pounds on. Was a big old bladed, double hooked. That you buy already rigged. Purple worm. I mean, yeah, especially in Florida because like he was like Daniel just said it's the shadow and the outline that they're seeing. That's why color makes a difference to a point, but it's more
Mhm.
about the fish have to be able to find it and the fish have to want to eat it. And then what I was going to say too is the blue and black. The reason it works so well is because when a crawdad, everything eats crawdads. Like out here in the Snake River, you'll catch a 30-inch brown and it's full of crawdads. You catch a 8 pound or 2 pound or whatever rainbow, it's full of crawdads. You catch a cutthroat, it's full of crawdads. And when a crawdad molts, they turn that blue black color and before they get red and orange and all that stuff. So the fish know that it's like a soft shell crab. So it's easier for them to eat. They don't have the defensive because everything's soft. So that blue and black, it doesn't matter what you're throwing. It's that color that's where I think a color makes a big difference. And like I told you, I tried throwing crawdad baits. I've got some real big ones that I'm still trying to catch that 8 pounder, and I always use the blue and black. And it doesn't matter what time of the year because there's a time when most of the crawdads would be molten. But again, the fish is dialed into, well, I can eat that because it's, soft. So anything blue and black in just about any place in the country. I never tried it in Alaska, but I'm sure it'd work. You know what I'm saying? So
So, yeah, the next one I have
thanks,
is a
Edward.
Guggen Baits Bandito bug. And this is actually, from what I've heard, one of the best selling soft plastics as of now ever made. And it's a creature bait, and I've caught my 4 pound bass on it. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
Texas rigged this thing, and these appendages just kick real
Yep.
cool. And I mean, it's slippery right now because it's got all that
And the
salt
other
and.
thing on a bait like that, because a lot of the creature baits you see have you take some of the legs off. If you know it works and you're not getting the hits, because like on a crawdad bait, I'll usually rip off one of the pinchers, and because again, it
Mhm.
makes the fish think it's doesn't have as much to defend itself with, or pull a couple legs off because it makes the bait look like it's it might be cruising around because a crawdad could cruise around with one pincher, or it could cruise around with, two legs missing, but it's not, the fish know that it's injured because, they look at it and it's like, oh, well, this one doesn't have a claw, and they'll knock the heck out of it, especially if it's blue and black. So,
Right.
um,
Yes. So I also like oh my gosh, what is it called? I'm having lure
oh,
block
I
right
do
now. I can't think
that.
of the name.
You're what, 36? Wait till you get to my age. I forget my wife's name sometimes. I'm like looking at her. I'm just kidding. But it's like that walk in the room and you walk out to go get something and then you get there and yeah, that becomes like a thing. Like I will holler at Nancy, I'm going to the bathroom to get whatever. So that when I get back there and I forget, I can holler back at her and say, and it happens all the time. And she's like, you went to get whatever. Thank you. And then it gets to be a thing. I wanted to show you real quick. This is the fly that I designed. So for those of you guys that fly fish, and I used to fly fish exclusively, like I would go with my dad and he'd be fishing shrimp, like fishing live shrimp, not just soaking them. He'd be fishing them. And I'm throwing this thing and kicking his butt. And what I did was it's just a shrimp pattern. I tie it on like a number from a number two to a 2/0. So I've got some that are pretty big, but I don't get too carried away because that world record 8 pound tippet I caught was on a number two hook. It wasn't a big bait. And it was about 4 days after a bad cold front. So the fish were just starting to get moving. But it's
Yeah.
real easy to tie because I can tie all those beautiful flies that look, the Atlantic salmon flies, and I could do all that. But when I'm out in Alaska or I'm out on the boat, I usually have, a mess of them tied up for clients. And I used to give everybody one of these with some, flies in it. And you don't sell flies. I sold some back in the day, but you usually just give away the recipe and let them tie them themselves. But it takes me about 2 minutes to tie this. Some of them are weighted, some of them aren't. I use Sea Witch, the company in Vera that used to make offshore lures called Sea Witch. I use those. I still have some of them, and they went out of business 30 years ago. But I use that to support the tail, and it's just eyes, gold chenille, weight under it. And for those of you tie flies, of course, put a good base down on it and tie the tail in, and it's just gold, chenille, or not chenille, but this is my moment to forget. The same stuff you use on Christmas trees, foil. And anyway, it doesn't take long to tie this, but you could. I've caught salmon in Alaska. I've caught grayling in Alaska, dolly varden, Arctic char, and way above the Arctic Circle, and gone to Key West and caught bonefish on this thing. I mean, it's again because again, I'll throw this all day. And I've had Scott Deal, who owns Maverick and Hughes boats. We're good friends, and he was fishing with me one day, and he's like, "Do you ever throw anything different?" I'm like, "No." I mean, I was kicking his butt, and he's like, "I just wondered if you tried anything." Well, why would I? I mean, why? If I'm using the baits I'm using, and I know I'm going to catch fish. Now, again, I'm not saying don't change. I'm not knocking anybody else's the way they do things, but when you're confident with something and you know it's going to catch fish, why would I stop? It's like leaving fish in a tournament. You found a bunch of fish. Why would you leave those fish to go find fish? You just don't do that. I mean, you stay there and fish the fish till they're either done or out, or there's too many people, or whatever happens. But it's the same thing with the lures. But that fly, I'll do a thing here. I got my fly tying stuff out because I need to tie some flies up for brown trout. Because I've caught browns on this, I've caught rainbows. And the only thing I don't like about this bait is that if I'm fishing the Snake River, I have to go through a lot of little rainbows. And I don't mind catching little fish, but to get to a big one, because everything eats it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like throwing a big old bait that these little 10-inch trout aren't going to eat. 8-inch trout will eat this thing. But the reason they work so well is you guys got to remember there are shrimp in every single body of water just about in the world. There's grass shrimp in freshwater, and you don't see them like you see the saltwater shrimp because they're not real big. But any shrimp pattern will work. I mean, in Alaska, I don't know of any shrimp up there. I'm sure there's some kind up there. We've never seen them, but to throw a shrimp pattern and have them knock it out, and eat it because it also looks like a little bait fish too, and the
Right.
gold. I have another one that I tied that I call the Redfish King, and it is the same, exact same thing, except for the chenille you can see on this is root beer colored, and I've caught snook and everything on both of them, but it seemed like the redfish for some reason liked this color better than the gold, and I don't know why. So when I'm going after redfish, or if I'm in a school of redfish, because you see them cruising down the beach and you catch a couple out of them and then they kind of turn their nose up at it, I'll throw this other color, and usually it's enough to get them to turn on again. So just, food for thought. I'll do a thing this year here pretty quick before everybody gets to fishing. I'll do a tutorial on how to tie that because it doesn't take long, and even if you don't tie flies and you get a little kit, you could you'll be able to tie that thing in 10 minutes.
So I do have
And-
I do have a question for you.
yes, sir.
So Lori So Circle asked me a question after my last video. She goes, "Is there?" She said she asked about the difference between freshwater lures and saltwater lures, and I said, "Well, there is a difference, but now I'm wondering if there really is. I mean, yes, like shrimp scent or certain size of lures are going to be different because they're definitely bigger fish,
Right,
but
right,
like you can take like a freshwater lure and still go
yeah,
catch fish in saltwater with them.
right,
So like
right.
it's all marketing, basically. I'm
No,
guessing.
exactly. And that's why I get frustrated with the lure companies. And I understand why they do it. I mean, you've got these guys at DOA, they're making this, everybody catches fish on them, but you can only buy so many of them. I mean, I probably will never buy another one of these again because I literally have a bag out there that says Cody jigs on it, and all that's in it are these. And there's a few different colors. Like sometimes for trout, I'll use a white one with a red tail. And I was going to tell Ali G that, like, and you can get them in this DOA, and it's just a white body with a red tail. Trout like that better. Now, I've never thrown the white and red one and not caught a snook on it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's all about that shrimp pattern. And a lot of times it has to do with the water clarity. Because, like you said,
Right.
darker water, you want this shadow. And do I think that makes a difference? Yeah. But there's also fish, you could put two trout next to each other and you could throw a live crawdad in front of them, and one of them will eat it, one of them won't. It's just the fish are like people, and it's just the way it works. But you throw this in front of the other one, and it'll eat it. So that's where I get into changing baits. But I just don't like seeing the marketing with. They do it with guns. They do it with everything. Because a gun, you buy a gun from Smith and Wesson. Well, like the Creedmoor, the 6.5 Creedmoor. That was all marketing. That's not the best weapon in the world, but we got people out here punching holes in elk with them because, yeah, I could shoot that thing at 400 yards and hit a gong at, a quarter mile with it, but you can't shoot an elk with it that far. And a 25-06 is actually a better round to use. And it's got better ballistics, but because of the marketing, whoever, I forgot if it was Remington that came up with that, but they have to sell more guns. It's the same thing with the bait companies. I mean, you see all these baits, but I'm like, why would I change something? And these older baits too, like a Dalton Special. I don't know if you can even buy those anymore because they were from like the 80s. But I pull out Dalton Specials just to throw one and tear the fish up because the fish hasn't seen it for 30
Yeah.
years. You know what I mean? So if you find those old lures your granddad's got and they're in good shape, or change the hooks on them, make sure the hooks are sharp because that's like the number one important thing. Sharpen your hooks. People are like, I can't catch a fish, or you're losing them. Sharpen the hook because during a tournament, if I catch two fish on a frog, I'll sharpen the hooks. Because I'm not going to miss a $5,000 fish because I didn't sharpen the hook. So that's like a big important thing, and that to me is more important than going out and buying the newest, latest thing. I mean, like the color that he came up with this to match a golden shiner, that I completely understand because they didn't have, anything that matched the golden shiner. They had stuff that's close. But like I say, you drop that in the water and I about died. I'm like, holy crap. Carrie put a lot of thought into that color. And that is something that, yeah, I'd buy a bunch of them because they work. But I'm not going to go buy 62 different colors of it because other than blue and black and maybe this color, and there's that green pumpkin seed, always works well all over the country. I mean, there's certain colors. Yeah, I have a few of them in here because if I really need to change up on something, I'll do it. But otherwise, I fish the same thing over and over and over. And the
Right.
clients that come with me will leave. And a buddy of mine went out, and this was the other lure I'm going to show you real quick. Um, So these are the live pointers I was telling you about. And as you can see, this box right here is about full of them. That's about $1,000 worth of lures. And I'm not, my buddy, when he went fishing with me out here, he didn't know there were smallmouth. And he's a smallmouth bass fisherman. That's what he does. And so we go out to go fishing. And I told him, why don't you throw one of these? And he's like, well, I got my baits. And I was kicking his butt. And I mean, it's just how these things work. And this is the one that I was telling you about. This is a live pointer 112 MR, 112 MR. And this is actually, so live pointer makes a pointer and a slender pointer. This is the slender pointer. It's made for smallmouth bass. It's got, you can see it's got the ball bearings in it. I don't know if y'all can see that. So when you
Yeah.
cast it, the ball bearings fall to the back. So you can cast it a mile. See, they're down here now. And then when you put it in the water, they come up here. And what this thing does is as you're reeling it, it's got a real tight wobble. The pointer has a wider wobble for largemouth, supposedly, and this is a tighter wobble for smallmouth. I've always used the tighter wobble because everybody in the tournament industry or tournament fishing were using the one designed for largemouth. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw the different one because guess what? The fish are seeing this wide wobble. Let's go with this. And I was kicking butt with these things. But what happens is when you stop it, it because of where the bearings are at there, and there's one that stays stationary and there's one in the front, it floats head up just like an injured bait fish. So
Cool.
you pull it like a stick bait, work it. And on these, I will use usually a medium heavy rod because I'm still throwing braid. And Rick Clunn, I told him and I are pretty good friends because he likes fly fishing. He fishes professional bass tournaments, but he's a heck of a fly fisherman. He loves catching stuff. So that's how we got to be friends. And I was at a Bass Pro thing in Orlando, and I went down there just to see him because he was doing a, whatever you call it, a, demonstration there. So he comes running over to me and he said, I heard you guys you're winning these tournaments on those live pointers with braid. Like, how are you doing that? Because with these things and braid, when you set the hook, these Gamakatsu hooks are tiny, but they're sharp. And it usually will rip it out of the mouth of even a big bass because the braid is just so unforgiving. And I said, well, what we're doing is we turn the drags almost off. So I can't rip it out of its mouth. And then I immediately tighten the drag to fight the fish. And he's like, how's the rod working? And I was like, we really need a medium heavy or a medium with a fast tip. Like I need something that's not going to, I could fight the fish and get it out of the grass, keep it from going into stuff, but I need something that's not going to help rip this out. And so Rick actually got with, what's a Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops, and he made some rods to do this with braid. And
Nice.
so when he got them done, he actually sent me a couple of them because he called me, because Radar, I got this rod. You guys need to try it. So sometimes I'll use a fluorocarbon leader in front of these if it's really clear water. And so that makes a difference. But again, we've thrown it without the fluorocarbon because the fluorocarbon, now you've got another knot up here, 18 to 20 inches, which is another weak point. Even though if they're good knots, it's just another place it can break. And you don't want to do that in the tournament. But that's the live pointer that I was telling you about that I have caught. I was catching fish out here on the Snake River and these huge trout. And I was trying to catch a big smallmouth. I was going through all these trout, and if I got them in the gill, I'd take them and eat them, and if not, I'd chuck them back. And I was sending pictures to the office at Fish and Game, and Don Jenkins was like, "What the hell are you catching all those big trout on?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to tell you because it's kind of a secret." And he was laughing, and when I showed it to him, they couldn't believe it. They were like, that's a bass bait. Yeah, but guess what? It looks exactly like a river minnow. If you take a Sharpie and you put a line down it, it looks exactly like a river minnow that we have in the thing here. And that's why these things were slaying. And I've caught, I don't know how many 30-plus-inch browns on this thing right here. So this is the one I've caught snook on it. I've caught salmon on it in Alaska. It's the new Rapala, the black back Rapala. So
The Dubs, if you guys go to Amazon, type in Dove Sun, look up Paddle Tail Grubs by Dove Sun, this will come up. It's got two little eyes on it. I said I caught largemouth. My only two smallmouth I've ever caught were on this same exact paddle tail right here. So I've caught
wow.
largemouth, smallmouth, crappie, bluegill, all on this little tiny with a jig head, with like an 1/8 ounce jig head. This is a smaller one because it's what I could find.
Right.
But I just rig it on there and I've caught all those. I do want you keep talking about yes.
Tournament.
Permanent, you
Yeah,
know what
I
I'm
do that.
saying. Blah blah blah. Fishing. I've done one online fishing tournament through Shane Webb on YouTube. Shane
Mhm.
Webb's Fishing. Last year I joined it because you could fish from the bank, you can fish from a kayak, you can fish from whatever. You go to your home body of water wherever you want you through this time to this time. You catch the fish, you take the picture, you weigh the fish, you send it, and then through ever, like, I caught the first fish. I hate tournament fishing. I love
Mhm.
watching it.
Right.
I caught one fish, and here's why I hate it. Because I want to go out there and I want to fish and catch whatever I catch. I don't want to go out there and be like, okay, so I caught a 16, 3.5 pound bass yesterday. Today I've got to top that. I just don't like that. You know, to that,
Right.
I just don't like
It's
that pressure.
competitive. It's competitive, and the problem is like even today when I go fishing, I the doctor once told me you need to stop fishing. You need to relax. Like you need to take a break. And most doctors, everybody in the office was laughing because they're like, usually the doctor will tell you you need to take a break, go fishing. But I'm so competitive and I'm not an ass about it. Like if you and I go fishing, it's like, oh, I caught more fish because I usually don't catch any fish when I'm with. Like if you came out here fishing, I'm going to put you on those holes. I want you to catch fish. You know, so I'm in the back doing whatever, running the trolling motor, and I might be fishing, but I'm going to tell you where to throw, and I'm not going to throw in there because every time it happens, like with Wayne, he's not catching something, and I'm like, man, I don't want to throw in there because I know I'm going to catch a fish. And you're going to be like, I just fished that. And it happens all the time. I'll go, okay, and I'll throw in there and catch a fish. I don't know what it is. It's just, I don't know. My wife, even, I let her kick my butt this year, and she did. One day I let her kick my butt, and the next day I didn't let her, and she kicked my butt. And I'm like, okay, well, you're on your own from now on because, I'm in the front of the boat. I can put it where I want to. But anyway, it's something that kind of gets in your blood. And my sister, Granny Southern Corner was telling me about those online tournaments. And I'd like to do it just to do it because I think it'd be fun, like you and me, just for something to do. But
Yeah.
when you actually start tournament fishing, if you're in a good tournament trail, because like I was telling you last night, I've done those other things up there are from a bass tournament. I don't know if I could still that those two black ones. That's from
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bass tournament. And I don't need a big trophy. The reason I'm fishing those is for the money. And I mean, I know that sounds bad. I don't treat the fish any different. I don't approach it any different. But when we're fishing a tournament, some of those cost $2,500 to enter. Like I'm fishing
right.
to win it or at least get big fish and get my money back. So it's kind of gets in your blood though, because like I say, when I fish with Nancy or I take Eric fishing, again, I'm not being a jerk about it, but I fish hard. And the problem with
Yeah,
my age and with my hands getting older and stuff is I couldn't keep up with the tournament fishing the way we were doing. Cause you got to remember every single cast could catch that fish that you need to win the tournament.
right.
So it's not like you sit down and eat lunch. It's not like you stop and drink like we hydrate, of course, with Gatorade or whatever, because we're sweating our butts off. Because in Florida, you're fishing in 95-degree temperatures and high humidity and all that stuff. It just kind of gets in your system. And I think if you actually went and fished a real, and I don't want to say real tournament. I'm not taking anything away from the online stuff, but an actual go, get in a boat, do a check in, they check your boat out, all do a real tournament. It's kind of fun. And then you've got people there that if you do fish a bass tournament, even a local one like the FLWs, a lot of times some of the pros the Elite Series guys will be in those smaller tournaments because like Kevin Van Dam was at a tournament. I got to meet him in Lake Harris, and it wasn't a huge Bass Angler Sportsman Society tournament, but it was a Southeastern tournament, which still paid a lot. He happened to be down there, and he was fishing it, because you got to be on the water. And I think they were having a bass tournament, a BASS tournament there like 2 weeks later. So he was kind of using that as a pre-fish thing. But you get to meet some of those guys, and I'm going to tell you, even Mike Iaconelli, who can kind of be a jerk. I mean, I like the guy, but Mike's Mike, you know what I'm saying? But they'll give you information. And if you listen, I still learn things every day, man. I mean, if somebody came to me and I went to fish Lake Harris now, I haven't fished that lake for, you know, 13 years now. I'm sure I could go out there and do well in a tournament, but I don't. The lakes changed. The water changes, the cover changes, all this stuff. And if somebody's been fishing it, it might be that I use the same baits, but I got to approach it differently. You know what I mean? And a lot of those
Yeah.
guys, like Eddie calling me with a spinner bait, you know what I'm saying? You can learn a lot by going to a big tournament and just listening to them. Because a lot of times they'll ask you when you get on stage, especially if you win, they'll ask you, "Do you mind telling us what you did?" And I won a tournament on Toho where with 5 fish, I had 47 pounds. I called a 7 pounder at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was by myself. It was a team tournament. I was fishing it by myself because in those team tournament trails, you could fish you could fish two of them by yourself, and you could fish two with an alternate partner. So out of a say a 20 tournament trail for that year, four of them you could do that. And I fished it by myself, and second place had 15 pounds. And I got on stage and told him that, because Scott, the guy that ran it, or Steve, I'm sorry, he was a guy who was in bass cat boats. He was real big with bass cat boats. He said, "You mind tell us what I did?" I said, "Yeah, but y'all aren't going to believe me. I threw top water all day." And it was a sunny day. And I showed him, the frog I used because most of the guys that knew me knew what I was doing. And a lot of people didn't believe it. They're like, I'm like, no, I threw top water. I caught one fish on a spinner bait that had missed the frog. I threw a horny toad in there and watched her come out and look at it. And I'm like, I got to do something. So I picked up a spinner bait, threw it in there. And that was the only fish that day I didn't catch on top water. But I got her up to eat from using top water. You know what I'm saying? And it was a sunny day. Like most people are like, yeah, we tried top water in the morning, we quit. But that's something that if you were at a tournament trail and like that day, I can guarantee you somebody that fished the tournament, if they listened to me and went and fished top water, they probably would have won the tournament the next weekend. Because in a week, unless we have some major, weather come in like a hurricane or something in Florida, it's pretty much going to be the same from week to week. From I don't know June through August. The temperatures will change, but you
Yeah.
can learn a lot, man. If you ever get a chance to go do it, go fish a tournament.
That's the reason why I like the online tournament. I'm a bank fisherman. I don't have a kayak yet. I want to get one, but I'm still kind of, iffy about it. But the tournament was free. If you won $500.
Oh wow, wow, that's cool.
And I can't remember the name of the company that was working with this guy, but like every Wednesday he'd come on and he kind of talk to you about like what's going on. And there's multiple um fishing tournaments throughout the year. Like some of them are like the top 5 bass, or you can have a partner and do things or whatever. But it was really neat. It's just I didn't like after I caught that first bass, and it was like after that I was like, I caught the first bass of the tournament. Like I was the first one, 3.5 pounds. And oh, thank you,
Flower.
CL, for the gift.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
and 16-inch largemouth, and that's the picture of me in the black and white shirt with
Right,
that bass
right.
at the end. That was that bass
Oh
that I
wow.
caught,
Yeah, that's
and it was
cool.
a really pretty bass. And I caught it on this lure right here,
Oh
the
yeah,
Strike King Mini King with the tray,
yeah,
and it was in like super shallow
yeah.
water too. I was just casting, and then the fish hit it. But we're probably gonna get off here in a little bit so I can get ready to go to Scott's live stream. And Scott will be on with Mike's Adventure Sparks. So you guys need to go over there and check that. But I've learned a lot here. This has been fun showing off lures and talking to you. And we could talk for hours, my friend. We could just chit chat and 3 hours would go by.
Oh,
But
we'll do it again. We could do it on my channel one day, and I appreciate everybody who subscribed to me off of this. And I'm almost to the 1,000 subscribers, and I'm gonna
oh,
get back to going again. And I appreciate all the help. And I'm sorry I yak so much. I've been stuck in the house with this foot.
no.
And I actually was talking to my taxidermist today, and she's like, "Radar, you need to get out of the house." I'm like, "Yeah, next week. I get my wires out of the foot Friday. I can
So
get
your
out of the
taxidermist
house."
is a woman.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool.
Yeah,
I've
she's
seen a
cool.
lot more women taxidermists.
She's
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to give her a plug real quick. She's actually, for those of you who are close to me, in a couple of weeks, she's on Facebook and her name's Chelsea, and I'll throw it on my Facebook page. She's doing a pheasant. Like you pay 500, it costs $400 for her to mount a pheasant, and she does awesome work. She went to a school in Pennsylvania for 2 months to learn to do taxidermy. Like she really went into it. You know what I'm saying? And she's
Is
doing a
her name, is it like Taxidermy Arts or something?
I
Like, or who
think
is it?
like I say, I should have wrote that all down, but
I think I've seen her
she's
before.
doing
She's
a
really cool.
class at her place for $550. It's a 2-day class. You get to learn how to mount a pheasant. So you get the pheasant when it's all done, and you get to take home the reason it's not just $400, but she's doing like six
Because you're
people.
paying for it, yeah,
Right.
and
But
all the
but
stuff,
then
right?
you can learn how to mount a bird. And I've mounted ducks in the past, but it took me 2 weeks because I'm a perfectionist and I don't know all the tricks. So I'm actually going to go do that class if it works out for me with a time frame. But I mean, if y'all check that out as you're close, I think it'd be something fun to do. And like I say, it's cool to have a lady taxidermist, and she does awesome work. And I'll do one day when I'll show you some of my mounts. But anyway, it's been fun, man. I knew you and I'd hit it off, Daniel. Sis was right. She's like, you two could probably talk for days. Um,
So before we go, I want to show you guys. So I've
Thanks,
my little
Joy.
studio wall
Love
with
you,
my
Joy.
fish, but I added something to it. I know you guys really can't tell, but I wanted an LED sign. And if you guys look
Oh,
close
that's
enough, is it
cool.
centered on it? It says bait and tackle, and it's got a lipless crankbait on there.
That's
I spent
cool.
$6 on that on eBay just so I could have something that kind of lights up, and I wish it showed up better here. But
That's
my
cool.
little my little studio wall
I
in my
like the way
living
you
room.
set that up. I mean, my studio is my hunting room. I got a big old 40-gallon aquarium in front of me. And I mean, I don't have any mounts in here, but my crossbow's on the wall and duck calls. And I sleep in here because I'm old and snore, and my wife needs to be able to get up and go to work. So you'll find out one
So I'll
thing I'll
show
tell you.
this.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd
So
seen some
there's
of
my
that.
ground. I did that pelt myself. My first
Wow,
groundhog.
that's cool.
That's my first dove I shot in the front yard, but I blew it up because I went to fly up, and with a 12 gauge, it was way too close. I shot that chipmunk with an air rifle
Oh, that's
right
cool.
there. There's my 8-point buck rack I found when I was 9. My uncle John mounted it, the same one that did the the fish for me.
Wow.
That's the state forest boundary sign that I probably shouldn't have that I found on the Ellen Putnam
Oh,
forest on the ground.
that's cool.
My big fox squirrel I shot off of public land. And there's a picture of a thing I made for my first deer that I got in
Oh,
October 23.
that's
Because
awesome.
I have a tiny house, so I don't have a lot of room in here.
Yeah,
But
that's
I got the
why.
picture, and the acorn drop was I picked up one of the acorns on the ground. And I had some deer scent out, so I made this little with brown paint. I took a little thing and made a little deer scent thing.
That's
So
cool. Yeah, I know
yeah,
with the mount thing,
140 pound doe. Yeah,
it's hard to put the mounts up on the wall. Like I've got a bunch of my mounts are in Florida at my buddy's house because I just don't have room for it. Like if I shot a big elk, I shot a nice 6-point elk in Colorado, and the rack's actually in a bar in Creede, Colorado, because I didn't have any place to put it. I mean,
right.
what do you do with all this stuff? And I'm like you, I hunt for meat. I've shot some
Oh,
record buck. I've got one buck in Florida that's in the record book, and it's not a monster. But I did shoot at the time the third largest Osceola turkey ever taken in 1999, and I think it's still number
wow.
10 on the list. It's huge gobbler. I was right after my granddad died. And he was a hell of a turkey hunter, and the guy who does the Lynch's calls,
Mhm.
ML Lynch, him and my granddad were really good friends, and they hunted together on my granddad's ranch. So I got the best turkey I could call a turkey in, like better than I could call elk. I'm really good at that. But we need to get together and do a hunting one, man. Because again, I really enjoy talking and teaching people because I'm 62. And again, like I'm not bragging, but I got a lot of knowledge from hunting in Alaska and guiding up there, and I like sharing it because you can read books, you can talk to people, but some people, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I want people to be successful, whether I'm guiding them or not. There's nothing like taking kids out to do something, when they get their first deer
Oh,
or
those
whatever.
that deer rack,
hmm
those were sheds.
That's what I
I
was going
was
to ask
9.
you. How'd you find
I was
both of them? Were
pushed.
they next to each other?
So this is a God thing. I remember this was June,
Oh,
mind you,
wow.
June.
Wow.
I'm push mowing my dad's yard, and my neighbor right across the fence had a combine and cornfield. And I looked and said, there's two in a combine and cornfield. Everything's tan.
Yeah, right.
Still don't know how I found them to this day. 2 spikes sticking up. I walked out there, picked up one side, kind of walked a little further. There was the other side. Not a squirrel. That buck's probably 135, 140, easy. It
Wow.
looks bigger on camera than what it actually
Right,
is.
right. Yeah. Yeah, the
So
camera
that was
makes me look even fatter
2001
than
when
I
I
am.
found them. Yeah. So that's pretty cool, but I've yet to shoot a buck. I injured a doe last year with my crossbow and couldn't find her. We think I hit liver
Yeah.
in the back of the
It
paint or
happens.
something.
Keep at it.
But
The guys that shoot does, I did a thing on Facebook about that because people will say, oh, you should have let that deer go. Every person that shoots a deer, for the most part, are sportsmen. I mean, you know that. There's always the slobs and the people that don't do what they're supposed to do, but most of them. And that doe to a 10-year-old is like shooting a world record elk. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
And these
around
people that
here,
knock them
around my
down.
property, I just see huge herds of. We've got. I saw 13 does a couple
Wow.
weeks ago after it warmed up and it started
Hmm.
hitting the 50 degrees before it dived real cold again. But there's a lot more does around here, and you only see the bucks.
Right.
Well, it had a nice 9 pointer, but I hardly see the bucks around here, and I see more does than anything. So if it walks in front of me at 20 yards, it's getting shot at.
No,
I don't care if it's
absolutely.
got
Yeah.
antlers or not.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So,
And I'm all about eating it. I mean, you heard the old
oh yeah.
saying, you can't eat horns. No, I'll hunt. There was one buck that I hunted for 5 years out there on the Snake River, and it was a beautiful 5x5. And I never got him. I don't know what happened to him. Nobody else shot him, I think. And then I'll have to show you some pictures of some bucks we've got out there. They're huge. And I might pick one, and like that's what I'm after, because we only have one tag out here. It's not like Florida where you can shoot all the deer you want. Out here there's one tag unless you get an extra doe tag, so you have one deer. And where I hunt, you can shoot whitetails or muleys with that tag, and it's an archery only hunt. There's an unlimited number. It's a draw, but to get to it, you have to have a boat like mine. You have to go up the Snake River or know somebody that owns property. Otherwise, you can't get in there. So it used to be I'd see nobody, but Onyx Maps has like really screwed up a bunch of stuff. And after this, I'll shut up. Believe it or not, I can shut up. But Onyx Maps did an article because all that property down there on that river is BLM. And most people didn't know that. They thought it was private. But I did my research back in the day and I knew where I could hunt and where I couldn't. And I got to be friends with a lot of landowners. And so I could cross land if I wanted to, but it's easier to do it in my boat. And it's also
Mhm.
easier with a bad back. I could take any deer, elk. I couldn't do it with a moose, but if I can get it in the water, I don't gut him. I can drag it back and float it back to the boat. And so I like hunting around the water down there. And plus in the river bottom, where are you going to find the deer? And there's some huge muleys down there too, but it's just don't give up on that hunting thing. Don't let anybody ever give you any grief about that, because I tell people all the time, there's people that have hunted their whole lives with a rifle that still haven't shot a deer. Now, nowadays, because of the liberal limits and because there's so many whitetails, most of them are starting to fill tags in that. But don't be, people that laugh at you or give you grief about shooting
So,
a smaller deer. Just,
right.
you know,
It took me 17 years to get my first deer. I started deer hunting in 2006. My parents owned 8 acres. The
mhm.
deer only came through during gun season. And if I shot at one, I missed one. But the second year on this property here, I shot a deer, hit her right in the neck. I wasn't aiming for the neck,
All right.
but she turned right as I let go. And she ran 40 yards and dropped.
Drop
She was
dead.
dead.
Yep. I like shooting them
Yeah.
in the neck too. I usually try and heart
And
shoot them, but yeah.
with a bow and arrow. Yeah, that
Yep.
was, so
Well, look, I'll shut
I'm
up,
the
man.
prime
I know you need
example.
to get.
Don't give up.
Yeah,
Don't
don't
give up.
don't
It
give
could.
up. Keep at it, man. Because like I said, we'll do one, on your channel, whatever. We can talk hunting next time, or I don't know if you turkey hunt, but that's a big thing out here, and people
I'm
out
still
here.
trying to get my first one. Where my property's at, if I walk up the ridge behind the house, it's a huge drop. And what I have a hard time is I can call it the turkeys, they'll gobble back, but turkey season comes in like the 24th or 23rd of April.
April. Yeah.
And I think if they would move it back a week or two, we'd have a better chance, because I think right when turkey season starts coming up is when the toms get locked down with
Right. Right.
with the hen.
Yep.
But it's also me trying to call them across the creek and
Yep.
up a ridge is not the easiest thing to do, because I've got hens and poults in the springtime that are right in my front yard.
Hmm.
But I'll hear them on the ridge, roosting. But then when I go out and try to call them, I can't get any of them to come in. But I'll try again this year. Who
Hey,
knows what can
get
happen? The
aggressive.
prayer can.
Get real aggressive. What I do when I have them hang up like that, get aggressive and learn how to use a diaphragm call if you don't know how, and get a box call and make a fight. You just go nuts like there's a fight, because it's just like people. So if you're at Kmart and you see two people out in the parking lot talking, you don't pay any attention to it. You see two people getting ready to fight or in a fight, everybody runs to it. It's the same with deer. It's the same with turkeys. So if you got them hung up, just take a box call and start gobbling and start cutting real hard with a mouth call. Or if you had somebody hunting with you, just make it like it's just one hell of a fight. I did a sequence on one of my videos, or I could do one for you, because I've actually had turkeys hang up out here and I was trying to shoot them with a crossbow. It called a lot of birds in doing that, because it's like, or if they come in and they start moving away, I've done that, and 80% of the time they'll come running in because they figure, well, there's a fight. those toms are going to be locked on each other, and they do just like elk. The hens are milling around with these big toms, and the satellite toms or jakes will come running in to try and breed with one of their hens. You see what I'm saying? So pick a fight, like try that, because it really works for me. And I've tried it out here, showed some guys, and they were like, that's too much racket. It's going to scare them off. And then here comes a turkey. I mean, at a full blown run as fast as they could go. And they come right into my decoys because I use decoys out here, obviously. And they come in 100 miles an hour. So try that. Try doing a really hard fight. Just a bunch of gobbles, a bunch of cuts. Just, you know, like I say, I'll do a sequence for you and try it because I'm telling you, it works a lot of times. So, anyway,
Yeah,
it's been a
so
pleasure.
we better jump off here. We'll keep
Yep.
talking, but it's been
Yep.
fun, and I'd like to thank all you guys for joining us here on the Friends of DG live stream. And I'm going to sign out like I always do. So y'all remember to like, comment, subscribe. Remember, Jesus loves you. Remember to push, pray until something happens, and always take the first right step and do what you guys got to do. And we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Awesome, man. God bless
Thank you,
you.
buddy.
God bless you.
Yep.
Thanks, Daniel. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.